Good morning, dear class. A grey morning here after all this tremendous heat wave we've been having. Yes, good morning to you, fellow Woolfians, or Virginia Woolf victims, perhaps, if you haven't been having too good a time with her style so far. But hope lies on the horizon. It may be that you will like the second novel of hers that I'm proposing that we read together, Mrs. Dalloway, better than To the Lighthouse. Not the easiest of books, probably not the hardest either, but still. Mrs. Dalloway, I think, palpably easier. This doesn't mean easier to fall in love with, but I think easier to simply to read. What worries me always as we approach the second book by the same author is how will that work out? Will there be disappointment? Because if you have fallen for an author, the chances are you want the same book again, without necessarily thinking you do. On the contrary, you think, let's have something new, but in your unconscious mind, in your heart of hearts, you're wanting for more of the same. You're wanting more of the same because that's what you loved. And I worry that that will happen. It's a worry that every reader has as they approach another book by their favorite author, thinking, oh, I do hope this isn't a sudden disappointment, like being let down by a friend, perhaps a newly formed friend, who you thought, well, this is a friend for life. This is somebody who will support me, will console me, will corroborate what I feel about the world, and then suddenly they don't. And it's as bad as having that done to you by another person. I worry about that, and I worry that the alternative, the different thing is if you have a new take, a fresh take, and you think, well, this is all right, but I didn't like the other one terribly, and you are trying to make friends with the same person in a different costume, different outfit. This can be strange. For the author, it's equally alarming. Woolf was a master of turning out, as my father told me to do, my father, the distinguished actor, forever choosing a new project and saying to me, I must come out of a different box, not get stereotyped, do something surprising. If you're known as a comedian, do something tragic, and vice versa. And this can be disturbing for an actor's followers too, and unacceptable, and it's risky. But for the actor as an artist, of course, you'd much rather not get stuck giving the same performance. Likewise for a writer. And I have tried to follow my father's precepts all my life as a novelist for the past 50 years, and have tried to come out of a different box. And Virginia Woolf, expert at this extraordinary ability to let the new subject dictate a new style. So I think eventually, if you like enough Woolf books, you surrender to her decision. You don't try and make her be the person, the writer, that you thought she was and loved her as. So here's Mrs. Dalloway, written 2 years earlier than her, she believed, best book, which the one we've just read. Which is one reason why I wanted to approach it first. And now here we have a probably equally well-loved book of hers, which starts in a calmer seas, I think, than the world of the Isle of Skye, into the lighthouse, where immediately the question is, what will the weather tomorrow bring? Anxiety is present from the start. In Mrs. Dalloway, we have a high society lady, not a million miles from the Rams, the world of the Ramses, going out to buy flowers. She's decided she's going to buy the flowers. She's not going to delegate this task for her party. She loves giving parties, and in this respect, she's not entirely unlike Mrs. Ramsay. And in others, she is quite unlike. So she's planning an evening where, as in the great beef stew feast in to the lighthouse, we will have a lot of different people gathered and a lot of different consciousnesses through which to filter the events of the party. And as you already know, Woolf is not only a master of this multiple stream of consciousness style, but it is her theme, the difference that people can feel, the distance that they can feel from each other and within themselves from their mood of 5 minutes before or 5 seconds before or 5 hours before. We are many people, and so the many people who pass before us in a Virginia Woolf novel experience these waves of feeling, and The Waves is the name of another Virginia Woolf novel, entirely different in form, because they're a group, a precise group, a precisely numbered group of people, each speak from their subconscious very briefly in turn. And then we return to the first speaker again, and on it goes, very formally laid out, and beautiful, highly poetic. And those of you who recognized the waves on the shore in the lighthouse as significant in her work, not only the physical presence if you're holidaying on an island, but also their metaphorical presence in the way in which we experience life. So Clarissa Dalloway, who's well married, has married well, is married to a member of Parliament, is experiencing the tingle of excitement. She steps out into the London morning. We're back in the metropolis now, and meets at least one passerby who she knows, and a lot whom she doesn't, and whom she speculates about, sees the world going by, and remembering, of course, a huge thing in the novel, in any novel, and above all in Virginia Woolf, where memory and time play such a huge part. And Clarissa's memories of her childhood at a country estate called Burton or Bourton, Bourton. Maybe it's Burton, maybe it's Bourton. We don't get to know. Are very important, and the people that she knew there when she was young and growing up. Peter Walsh, her old paramour, and Sally Seton, a girlfriend very important to Clarissa. Although her closeness to Sally, what has become of it, we will want to know when Sally comes to the party. Sally, who is now the mother of 5 big bouncing boys, men, and has moved from being the renegade that she once was, so appealed to Clarissa in Sally's character, to being a settled society matron. And this is how life proceeds. People take one step after another and turn into somebody quite different. And Peter Walsh, the old paramour, a major figure in this book, because he returns. He's returning to London from India, where he spent a lot of time, not making a great career for himself. And this is of concern to high society people, whether people make great careers for themselves. And Peter, an interesting man, has not. He's coming back to try and fix up a divorce for himself. He wants to marry a currently married Indian lady, and that's bringing him to London, as indeed is the prospect of seeing Clarissa again. Clarissa, the person that he never quite married, or she never quite married him, and such steps, such forks in the way belong to every life and are of particular interest to Woolf. So you will find yourself again in a land streaming with multiple consciousnesses and across multiple consciousnesses. And if you enjoy that aspect of her writing and her preoccupation with life and her mastery of language, theme, story, I'm sure you'll find lots of things to enjoy in Mrs. Dalloway. There is another strand. It's a more conventional novel in this way. There's another important character who was never going to be in the book originally at all, as she first conceived it, but is now tremendously important to the finished book and to us, who is a sufferer from PTSD. We're still now in the shadow of the First World War, as we were at the end of To the Lighthouse. And this poor man suffers from hallucinations, and his mental difficulties and the difficulties he has with the medical profession, who are trying to diagnose him and trying for various prognoses and what they should do with him, is important, as contrasting as it is, tremendously contrasting with the settled life and amours and problems and careers of the high society people with whom we're otherwise concerned. And that grounds the novel in a sense more of everyday life, and it grounds it elsewhere outside high society. And it also grounds it, if you like, those of you who couldn't help chasing the spectre that I was trying to discourage you from chasing at the beginning, the spectre of a biographical interpretation. You had, of course, plenty to find in To the Lighthouse that could be said to be drawn from Virginia Woolf's own life. You'll find plenty here, and most especially in the matter of psychological conditions and the difficulties that the sufferers had in those days and still have with so-called experts in psychological disturbance, something that Virginia knew all too well. I don't mean the disturbance which she did, but the business of trying to find your way through doctors who might or might not have useful things to tell you about how to get better. So that's another wing to the book, like many, if you like, conventional, traditional novels. It's a subplot, there's a secondary plot, there's another parallel plot. We don't stay with the same group of people. And that adds to its richness, as she wonderfully imagines a life in the mind of somebody who is suffering from shell shock, the condition now that we now call PTSD, and which we regard as a traumatic disorder, which it is. Shell shock seemed to have limited use because it related to the terrible effect of the repetitive sound of the shells landing in the First World War, the terrible noise of the guns. But now we know that we are shocked by many things in many ways that don't come with shells around them, making a shell noise. You don't have to be in the First War. Just the presence of extreme danger in recent wars, the recent wars that Americans have been involved in, extreme danger puts the soul under a pressure that it has great difficulty accommodating, and leads to what was called shell shock, is now called PTSD. So that is an important aspect of this novel. I wish you very well of it. I hope you enjoy starting on a new book, and I look forward tremendously to your thoughts. You've done wonderfully well. I really have enjoyed and admired your close reading of this first book of ours. It's been marvelously rewarding for me, and a delight to read your insightful and empathetic responses, for which I'm very grateful. You don't have to respond insightfully or empathetically towards the novel Mrs. Dalloway. You might be bored to tears with it, and I hope you know and trust what I say, that I equally approve of you as readers, whether you like what we're reading or whether you don't. It's equally important that we respect each other's preferences and each other's absolute indifference to one work of fiction and absolute delight in another. That's what fiction is for, not just to appreciate. Enjoy, my dears, and stay safe, please. Fond regards from your professor.